Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Thomas Jefferson said, "If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done." Benjamin Franklin said, "Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning." Basically, get off your duff, get to working, you've got dreams, you've got goals, you've got to do what it takes to get them. Like, subscribe, comment, show what your opinion is. Let me know if you like what you've seen. And I thank you for your support. Everybody's become concerned with China buying up all of this U.S. farmland, which at latest count is around 347,000 acres. But they don't even crack the top 10 of foreign nations that own land here in the United States. 31% of the foreign owned land in the United States is owned by Canada. Okay, fine, there are neighbors to the north. They've got their own issues. But there's so many countries that own land in this country. It doesn't even, like, the 0.9%, yes, has national security concerns, but there are other issues. But China, I can understand why you want to get rid of China. Don't get me wrong. That's a necessary thing, but let's investigate it. First, we're going to hear a little bit from around the nation about what they're doing about China, and then we're going to discuss some of the other things that are happening because of all of this foreign government ownership of land, or foreign companies that are owning land in this country.
A group of bipartisan lawmakers is investigating China purchasing a lot of American farmland, including some around U.S. military bases. In the last 5 years, California Congressman John Garamendi says an investment group spent close to $1 billion buying more than 50,000 acres of land, sometimes paying 5 times the market value. Garamendi says federal authorities cannot identify who those investors are. Some say it is long overdue to ban China from buying American land.
If Americans can't go buy land in China, I think we shouldn't hesitate to rule out the purchase of land in America by the Chinese Communist Party.
North Dakota is taking that step without Congress. This week, the governor there signed a new state law banning foreign governments from buying land in the state.
Rachel, thanks. New at 6, concerns over China buying up Arkansas farmland and spying on agriculture technology has led the state to order a company to divest ownership of that land. At a news conference this morning, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Attorney General Tim Griffin announcing plans to enforce a new law that bans foreign parties from owning agriculture land in the state. The governor said a seed research facility in northeast Arkansas is owned by a Chinese state-owned company. The new law allows the AG to order the company to give up 160 acres and also slap the company with a $280,000 fine.
Seeds are technology. Chinese state-owned corporations filter that technology back to their homeland, stealing American research and telling our enemies how to target American farms.
Governor said this is the first time any state has used a law like this. Griffin said the company has 2 years to sell, and that fine came from failure to disclose the ownership stake in a timely manner.
We're going to start with a basic premise that most people do not understand in this country. When we hear companies, we're thinking of American companies that are mostly not, or almost none of the companies are owned by the U.S. government. There are a few exceptions where companies are a little, there's a little murkiness there. But in China, especially when it comes to their international companies, China has a strong ownership of these companies. They don't allow a lot of foreign investment where the foreigners will have a lot of ownership. The Chinese government, well, CCP actually, has to have some benefit of these companies, which means ownership. One of the companies that drew a lot of concern from all of this. It had nothing to do with the amount of land they owned. It was where they owned the land. Now, this company was the Fufeng Group. Fufeng, F-U-F-E-N-G Group. They produce MSG, the thing that causes people to love certain foods. They also second largest producer of xanthan gum. And it includes all kinds of other chemicals that are food related. 2022, there was a proposed plant from this company in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Now, the reason that it raised concerns, specifically national security concerns, was because of how close it was to the Grand Forks Air Force Base. It could be used for signals intelligence, electronic warfare, all those things. So, this caused a kerfuffle in which we didn't allow that to happen. So, this is just one company. And this one was mostly noticed because of how close it was to a military base. But there are other concerns, part of which is that it's not just the land that they're buying up. They're also buying up companies and whatnot. And this is causing other concerns. But like I said, China only owns 347,000 acres. That's a lot of acreage. Don't get me wrong. Literally, it's only 0.9% of all the land owned by foreign countries. So let's start looking into some of the other issues and concerns. So the reason I keep harping on the fact that China only owns 347,000 acres in the U.S. is because the total in 2022 foreign-owned acreage was 43.4 million acres. Think about that for a second. We're worried about a very small amount of that, 43.4 million acres that's owned by foreign countries, when we have Canada, the leader of foreign-owned land, at 12.8 million. That's 31% of all the land. This is 2022 numbers. 4 other countries hold 12.4 million acres. That's Netherlands, Italy, United Kingdom, and Germany combined hold 12.4 million. There's other countries involved, but there are 100 countries that have really small amounts, but there's 100 of them, and you're looking at 15.6 million acres split among India, Saudi Arabia, Iran. Iran owns acreage in this country. Think about that for a second. And all this other property. And we're talking and this is up. It grew. 2017, for some reason, started a trend where 50% more land was bought over that time period between 2017 and 2022 than what had been previously owned. And what's really interesting in all this, Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIUS, it's a federal government interagency committee, and it reviews foreign transactions for national security reasons. And they're supposed to be getting information from Defense, Treasury, USDA. But USDA does not share complete or timely data with this to monitor what is going on. So these numbers that I'm giving you, they're old numbers. And it may not even be complete numbers, even for how old it is. This land is, let's see here, almost half all foreign-held U.S. land is timber or forest land. So that means that they're taking our trees. 29% is for crops, 22% is for pasture or other agricultural land, and only 2% is non-agricultural. And one of the biggest things driving it is that some of these foreign governments are getting the land so that they can build wind turbines here. Why are foreign governments being allowed to take part in our energy? Think about that for a second. And just a little tidbit here. At least 1.255 million acres in Maine, or about a third of the state's foreign-owned land, is owned by a Canadian timber company, Urban Woodlands. And they own a pretty big portion of it, let me tell you. I mean, 1.255 million acres. Now, mind you, it's right on the border, but that's the situation. And you've got all of this. Now, there are other concerns. The first concern when it comes to all this land being bought up by foreign entities is that the price of the land is rising. That means that small farmers who are able to have a little prosperity that would normally buy a little extra land so they could grow aren't able to do so because they can't afford the land, or they're having to buy less land, which is slowing the growth for American farmers. We already have the problem of too many developers are destroying farmland to put in these housing projects and whatnot that end up going empty 9 times out of 10. I mean, you take a look across the U.S., how many of these, unless you're in a city, how many of these housing projects actually have full capacity? They don't a lot of times. They fall through when this land needs to stay farmland. But everything is being increased price-wise because of the foreign investment. People are thinking, hey, we can make all this money from the foreign governments. And so they are. And they're making those prices the same for everybody. And it's hurting small farmers. It's hurting our capacity to grow food for ourselves. Take a look at the prices for food. But there's even more to think about. Food prices are a concern to everybody. Well, unless you're super rich. But we have a continuing rise in the cost of food. There's also the shrinkflation, which they're putting less food for the same amount of money. While foreign ownership isn't the only cause of these problems, they're one of the causes of these problems. On top of the fact of that we also have developers destroying farmland. Major corporations are destroying small owners because, well, they want to take over the land. But foreign ownership means that we have less food being produced in this country for us. And that's the first thing that we should consider. Considering that we have all this available farmland, all of it needs to be for us. Once we are feeding our own people, which we can do, we don't need to bring in any food from any country unless it's a luxury item or something that we can't grow here. But that's the thing. We can grow most things here. And we should handle that. It isn't being handled when you take a look at the fact that we keep destroying farmland and allowing others to buy farmland. And that's a big deal. China owning that land, 347,000 acres, isn't that big of a deal. It really isn't. Unless they put it next to a U.S. military base. That's a big deal. Don't get me wrong. But the big deal is that we're allowing other countries to buy our land far and above what China bought. And we're allowing developers to destroy the land, and we're allowing corporations to cause farmers to not be able to afford their own land. Are you beginning to see a trend? We're destroying our agricultural base. We are a nation. If you take a look at Adam Smith and his talk of the progress of a nation, we are able to be at all levels of the progress that he talked about in Wealth of Nations. We can have agriculture going on. We can have parts of this country be an agrarian society. We need to get the Democrats, we need to quit listening to the liberals in this country talking about how much money people make in a certain state, because where the farmland is, that needs to be concerned with farmland. So they don't need, if they're able to provide their own food, if the land is kept at a decent price so that they've got not just a place to put their heads, but also to grow some food, that's a good thing. If it's a lower cost of living, that's something that economists needs to quit harping on, because they don't seem to understand. Nobody seems to understand. Cost of living needs to be lower in certain states. Now, does that mean that there doesn't need to be jobs there? No. There does need to be jobs there. But we need to be concerned about where this food is coming from. And if we're having it here, cost of living being lower in an agrarian area, well, that's to be expected. And that's a necessary thing for the farmers, because if they're able to pay less, then they're able to compete with what they are selling. They're able to sell things at a decent price, which means that it's not overly expensive. We need to have economists in this country who are actually intelligent. We don't have that right now. I mean, yes, we've got Thomas Sowell, we've got a few good economists, but we need to have economists that understand what Adam Smith explained. We need to have economists in this country that aren't trying to destroy the economy by, oh, you need to be paid. No. We need to get rid of this minimum wage talk. We need to have farmers that are able to provide food for us. And this is just one of the areas that we need to fix. But hey, you may not want to eat. You know, we've got this whole big deal of, oh, you can't eat so many calories. Yes, you can. Why? Because go out and work. Those that work hard need the calories. Those that don't work hard, and most of the people working in offices don't work that hard. They're using their brains, but I'm sorry. I've been in office jobs. They bore the living daylights out of me, and they're not important in this country. All they're doing is, most of the time, providing a way to destroy this economy. So we need to take a look at what we need to do to fix this problem when it comes to agriculture, and this is one of the solutions. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now.